I, 32 female, am the eldest child in a family of 8. Dad, mom, 2 brothers, 17, 25, and 3 sisters, 29, 27, 15. Our parents told me I was adopted when I was 10. All my siblings knew I was adopted, but I was never treated any differently, and I had never felt like I wasn't a part of the family. Some years ago, Grandma, Mom's mom, passed away in her sleep very suddenly without a will. As a result, Mom had a lot of trouble with her siblings when it comes to splitting assets. It took 3 years for everything to settle down, after which Mom told us she would be drawing up a will to prevent the same thing from happening. Mom came home from the lawyers beaming, saying everything's settled. We were like, okay, great. But in her excitement, she started telling us who's getting what. My 29-year-old sis told her she doesn't have to tell because it's awkward. But Mom said she doesn't want any surprises and wants us to know in no uncertain terms as to what we were getting, so we don't fight and contest the will because it's final. After she finished rattling off the list, my siblings and I realized that I had been left out of it, so my 25-year-old brother asked what I'm getting. Mom stopped smiling and asked me if that's what I had asked my brother to say. I said no, I didn't, but I too am wondering why I haven't been mentioned. I don't know what happened, but something seemed to snap in her after that. She told me I shouldn't be greedy and should be grateful that she raised me because who knows where I could be and what I'm doing otherwise. I was hurt and told her that it wasn't really about the money, but leaving me out of her will was clearly hurtful. And if she had really seen me as her child, she wouldn't have left me out and said all those awful things. Mom reiterated that the will's final, then excused herself. I left shortly after, but my 15-year-old sis told me that Mom didn't come out of her room until the next day. I tried to resume things as it were, but her speech and text messages to me had become short and curt, and she no longer calls. We used to call each other regularly. Dad told me I shouldn't have been rude and disrespectful to Mom, that I broke her heart and should apologize. I told him what happened, and he said her money, her decision, and that I shouldn't have challenged her. I didn't want to argue, so I said nothing. My siblings have been trying to talk to Mom and Dad about this, but it seems to only make them unhappier. Dad accused me of turning my siblings against them. I haven't visited my parents since the incident with my mom, about 3 weeks ago, and we adult kids usually visit every week if nothing comes up. Am I the a-hole for asking about my share of inheritance, which basically challenges my mom's right to her money and assets, and for causing this conflict? Not the a-hole. Sure, your mom is entitled to split her estate up however she wants, but she started the conversation about the details of the will, not you. And it's pretty normal for you and your brother to ask the obvious question. Hey, did you forget to mention throwaway? Your mother is a huge a-hole for going straight to, hey, be grateful we adopted you. That's just cold. And that's an a-hole reason for her being inequitable in her will. On a tangent, stories like this are a great reason to talk about inheritance while everyone's still alive. There's always something that pisses off someone, even if it's not as egregious as this. Dealing with it in the aftermath of someone dying is 10 times worse, judging from the complete debacle of my grandparents' estate. Not the a-hole. Your mother is projecting her guilt onto you. She decided she only wants to give her biological children anything, yet deep down, she knows that she is being crappy and unfair to you. Rather than face up to what that says about her, she is inventing reasons why she is the victim in all this, and you are to blame and deserve nothing. She is frantically doing mental gymnastics in her head to avoid owning up to her own crappiness. This is why right from the get-go, she was ready to blame you for your brother's question and snapped over nothing. She had already been hiding from the voice in her own mind telling her what an a-hole she was being. She was dreading someone else voicing out loud what the honest voice of her conscience was telling her all along. Not the a-hole. Sadly, don't think the parents see you as just another one of their kids. Not really sure what that leaves you, but seems to be what has happened. Luckily, sounds like your siblings see you as a full sibling. My mom raised my brother and I on her own. She told me that my dad had been an addict and she wanted to get away from him. My brother's dad was always in his life, and he got way better things than I ever did. It always sucked. I know his dad had no obligation to help me, but my mom would always buy me the cheapest stuff and buy him great things. She would say that it was his dad's money that she was spending on him. For context, once I got a pair of socks as gifts while he got the latest toy. My mom forced me to get a part-time job in high school to help with the bills, while letting my brother focus on his studies and interests. It really sucked as I was always tired from school and work. I didn't go to college because my mom wanted me to help her out. I found my dad through my uncle. I found him before the virus. He has been sober for a long time. He has a family of his own. He was surprised when I reached out, but we verified that we were related. We've been talking the last 2 years, and he is cool. I've talked to my sisters, and they're really nice too. I can't describe it, but I instantly fit into their sibling dynamic. My sister is moving out, and my dad is going to pay her rent. She asked if I wanted to move in with her. I thought about it, and I agreed to. I want to go to college, but my mom is asking me to work for one more year as she is struggling financially. She has said she would start charging me rent if I go to college. I don't want to load up on debt, and moving in with my sister would help me a lot. I moved in with my sister last month. It is really nice to not care about rent, and I know it is greedy, but it makes me feel loved that someone is willing to pay my rent when they can spend on something else. Things didn't go well with my family. My mom accused me of abandoning her the second my dad showed up. My brother called me a gold digger and said I shouldn't expect any help from them if anything happens. My mom is struggling to pay her mortgage, and my brother had to cut back his course load to help mom out. I feel really guilty for putting them in a horrible position. Not the a-hole. You've been gifted an opportunity I'd sell my kidney for. Free rent? Plus, you now have a chance to get to know your dad your mom kept from you, who actually worked and turned his life around. And his second family is accepting of you. Who wouldn't take that deal? Does your mom not know that you feel like she's held you back for so long? And by feel like, I mean she definitely did. She needs to fend for herself instead of living off her kids. Also, if you go to college, I will make you even more in debt by making you pay my rent as well as bills. Makes total sense to me, Ma. I roll. You didn't abandon her. You simply stopped being used by her at your own expense. Your brother is now experiencing some of what you were going through, and instead of realizing that must have sucked for you, he is lashing out. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your mother appears to have treated you like Cinderella while your brother was treated like an ugly stepsister. You found the other half of your family and have been offered something you wouldn't be able to afford on your own. You are not responsible for financing how she runs her house. That's on her. I, 36 female, own a house with my brother Mark, 35 male, and his wife Stephanie, 33 female. We bought it about 2 years ago. Only Stephanie and I are on the loan because Mark had bad credit. They had very little income on paper, so I was qualifying us for the loan, although her parents gave some money for a down payment. He's on the deed, and each of us owns 1/3. As adults, I almost never saw Mark after I left as a teenager following some trauma. We never got along, as I was the scapegoat kid for those familiar with crappy family dynamics, and Mark could do no wrong. When I got a job in his town, I moved in with him in a rental. We were both excited to reconnect. I was in the market for a house, so I suggested we buy a triplex together, live in the big unit on the cheap, and rent out the other two. We did that at a good time, and now all have some decent equity due to good timing. They would have been several years from purchasing a house without me, and definitely not one at the price point and with income, like the one we bought. One day, about 6 months after we closed, out of the blue, Mark went off on me, yelling how much he hates me, everyone hates me, how awful I am. Our mom was there, as was Stephanie. They agreed it was awful and uncalled for. I told him how hurt that made me to hear. I was really devastated. But if he hates me, there's no reason to own a home together. We could sell. He didn't want to piss off his wife. She was livid with him. So he suggested that Stephanie and I take him off the deed instead of sell. We agreed and started making arrangements. That made him even madder. I think he wanted us to say no, so I backed down. To his credit, a few weeks later he apologized and said he didn't mean those things. However, I'm used to being the scapegoat in the family, and I didn't want to live in a situation where he'll blame his stressors on me in such an awful way. Plus, I'm the minority owner against these two, so I moved out, but I thought we could heal our relationship better without me being there. Months went by, no word from him except to ask for money for repairs. I was feeling resentful and used, like they got me out of their dream home. So I asked them to buy me out. They were upset, but understood and asked for a few months to get qualified, and I was okay with that. Well, a few months went by, and prices went up a lot. Then even more months went by, and rates went up a ton. And now he's telling me his marriage is on the rocks because Stephanie is so pissed they'll have to pay a bunch more now, and it's all my fault, and he hates me again. I said we could sell, and they could take the $200K they made off in 2 years and buy something more affordable. He thinks I'm doing this out of revenge, but I'm really not. I want the best for them. I just don't want to be in a business partnership with them anymore. I had a lot of hope we could heal our relationship, but after this, I don't think that's possible. I'm too hurt. Am I the a-hole? Hate to break it to you, but you will be the a-hole to him no matter what happens. You can help them make 50% profit on their income, and you'd still be the a-hole for something. Sell the house, take your piece, and be happy for once. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You took the risk of mixing family or friends and money. You aren't the first or the last, but this is a common outcome. However, better than most, it sounds like y'all all leave with a tidy profit. Time to move on. Sell. Not the a-hole, but consult with a good real estate lawyer in the area, because if they refuse to sell, you may need a court order to sell it. Don't wait. Just get it done. If Stephanie has the brains to divorce your jerk of a brother, that may be in her best interest too. You did them a kindness, and your brother was an a-hole instead of grateful. I think it's highly unlikely he will ever be a nicer human being. My stepdad, 56, and my mom, 42, recently got into an argument about me, 17 female, again. We've been having a lot of power outages in my town recently, and the other day our power was out again when I woke up. I asked my mom what I should do for food, since I couldn't open the fridge, and we don't have any foods that don't require electricity or water to make. My mom offered to pick me up something on her way home. When she got home, I heard her and my stepdad arguing about how my mom coddles me and that I don't do anything for myself. I was caught off guard by their argument, especially since I had 2 jobs up until about 3 weeks ago, and I pay for my car insurance, gas, my phone, all of my clothes, and anything extra I need outside of food. My stepdad continues on to say that I'm spoiled, and I won't be able to live outside the house alone because I'm not self-sufficient enough to make myself food. My stepdad even went far enough to say that I won't ever make it, and that I haven't made it very far now anyways. He said that he hopes my mom is always there for me, because I'll end up ruining my future and I'll need her to take care of me, like always. My mom did defend me, and told him he was an a-hole because I heard everything he said. His excuse was that he didn't know I was home. I've since told my mom that I won't be speaking to him, and I don't want him at my graduation. My mom told me that's unfair, because he's been there my whole life. They've been married for 12 years. I told her I don't think it's unfair, since he sees me as a failure to not want him there when I graduate. My sister agrees, but my brother and his friends are telling me that I'm the a-hole, and that I should want him there in spite. So my question is, am I the a-hole for uninviting him? It's completely reasonable to not want him there. You're 17. What does he expect? For you to already be making 6 figures and have a paid-off mortgage? Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, and your stepfather is unreasonable on you. You uninviting him to your graduation is not a sign that you are ungrateful, but to send a message that you are done with his bad behavior, and you deserve better. The way he calls you failure is super not okay. You do what is right for you, and go ahead and uninvite him. Do not let mom, brother, and friends tell you otherwise. You are not a failure as what he claims to be. Moving forward, you focus on you, and work hard in what you do at your jobs and your future education post-high school. Your best revenge to him is living life to your best, and your good work ethic be the talk of your bosses, present and future, uni tutors, fellow students, and co-workers. If your stepdad still cannot see it otherwise, well, tough luck. He does not know what he is missing. Not the a-hole. You are not a failure. But if it were me, I'd duck with him and ask him why he hasn't stepped up in the last 12 years to ensure you weren't a failure. What a jerk. So, brief backstory. I missed several years of my daughter's life due to the fact I was going through a rough patch financially and emotionally. But eventually I managed to get through those times and was able to get involved in her life again when she was about 11. We were very similar in looks and personality and clicked right away. We grew very close to each other and have a great father-daughter relationship now. Now back to the present. My 21-year-old daughter is set to get married next week. Months before now, when she first got engaged, she initially told me that I would be the person to walk her down the aisle. Now, at the last minute, she told me that she also wants her stepdad to walk her down the aisle, since he's been in her life longer than I have, and felt guilty for leaving him out. I did not like the sound of that. My dream of walking my only daughter down the aisle did not involve another man in it, especially when she initially told me it would just be us two. I told her that I didn't want to share this moment with somebody else, as not only am I her biological father, but she already promised it would just be the two of us. She apologized to me and admitted she should have mentioned it to me earlier, but felt she would regret not having her stepdad be a part of the moment. I'm not too fond of her stepdad, and hated the idea of having to share a moment that should exclusively be mine with him. I told her I would not go to her wedding if she decided to have us both walk down the aisle, as I was not willing to embarrass myself. She left my house after that without saying a word, but she told my sister and parents about what I said. My parents and my sister went off on me and told me I needed to put my pride aside for one day, which is having me question as to whether or not I may have been a little childish in my response. Am I really wrong for expecting to walk her down the aisle alone after she promised me that I would? You're the a-hole. It's her wedding day, not yours. It's not about you. Besides which, anyone who abandons their child because they're having a hard time should count themselves lucky to even be invited to said child's wedding. You're the a-hole. It's her day, not yours. You sound like a child throwing a temper tantrum by saying you won't even attend if you don't get your way. You should be happy there was a stepfather in her life that helped raise her when you were going through your rough patch. You're the a-hole. You abandoned her for half her life, so another man stepped up to do what you wouldn't. You should be eternally grateful and honored to walk with him. You missed the hardest years, while another man took care of your child.